Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. Taiwan gearing up as China fires live rounds off its coast. Why is the U.S. Indo-Pacific commander saying these drills could be China's practice run for a full-on invasion? The U.S. and Ukraine are locking in a crucial deal on rare earth minerals, potentially slashing America's reliance on China's stranglehold over vital resources.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources.
From slashing tires to hacking websites and pressuring theaters, why is Beijing going all out to stop one arts company from performing in the U.S.?
Even though it's just a dance show, it's a cultural event, but it is bringing back this lost heritage that they're really afraid of.
And Washington proposing a $1 million plus fee for Chinese ships entering U.S. ports. It's a move aimed at reviving America's shipbuilding industry. Is China rehearsing for a takeover of Taiwan? Taiwan deployed naval and air forces on Wednesday after China launched a live fire drill just dozens of miles off the island. The island detected over 30 Chinese military jets along with warships just over 40 miles off its coast. The drill comes days after China's fourth-ranking official called for a greater effort to make Taiwan a part of China. The Chinese Communist Party views Taiwan as part of China despite never having ruled it. The regime has also pledged to take Taiwan by force if necessary. The U.S. doesn't have diplomatic relations with Taiwan, but sells weapons to the island to help it defend itself. Washington doesn't clarify whether it would defend Taiwan, but it is watching the situation closely. Sam Paparo, head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, spoke out 2 weeks ago as China conducted another round of drills around Taiwan. He said these drills are not just exercises, they're rehearsals for a potential military move on the island. Concerns are growing in Taiwan that China could sever its communications with the outside during a conflict, blocking the West from helping the island. Worth noting, just a day before China launched this live fire drill around Taiwan, the island detained a Chinese ship suspected of cutting an undersea cable that connects Taiwan to nearby countries. Similar incidents happened 2 years ago when 2 Chinese vessels cut undersea cables connecting Taiwan's Matsu Island to the rest of Taiwan, severing their access to the internet. Paparo noted that Chinese drills around Taiwan have been expanding. In 2021, China sent 20 jets near Taiwan. Fast forward to 2024, that number has spiked to over 3,000 sorties in a single year. Taiwan's defense ministry calls China the sole and biggest threat to Indo-Pacific peace. Last Friday, China kicked off a drill in international waters between Australia and New Zealand with little warning, disrupting nearly 50 commercial flights. Ukraine is working on a deal with the U.S. for rare earth minerals. President Zelensky is expected to go to Washington on Friday to sign it. He says the agreement with the U.S. could be a big success, but that would depend on his talks with President Trump. For the U.S., the potential deal is a chance to rely less on China for rare earth minerals.
The draft agreement aims to establish the terms and conditions for a reconstruction investment fund. Ukraine plans to contribute 50% of all future profits from relevant state-owned natural resource assets. Already existing deposits, facilities, and more are not subject to discussion in this creating of the fund. The fund will be under the joint control of the United States and Ukraine. The document reportedly also states that the U.S. supports Ukraine in obtaining security guarantees to establish lasting peace. But the draft didn't name any specific guarantees. On Tuesday, President Trump said he expects Zelensky to sign the deal in Washington on Friday.
Ukraine said it agreed to a major minerals deal with the U.S. on Wednesday. This deal would give Washington partial access to Ukraine's natural resources. But why are Ukraine's minerals so important to the U.S.? Let's take a look.
US President Donald Trump has said he wants Ukraine to supply the US with rare earth minerals as a form of payment for financially supporting the country's war efforts against Russia.
So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
Here is what we know about the critical minerals in Ukraine that could be of interest to the US and other partners. Rare earths such as nickel and lithium are a group of 17 metals deemed critical to the production of batteries and other components used in electric vehicles, cell phones, missile systems and other electronics. And there are no viable substitutes. Here's geographer Julie Michelle Klinger.
They're often described as the vitamins or the spice of industry because they have, over the past several decades, they've enabled, through advances in material science, our technologies to get smaller and faster and stronger and more resilient.
The US Geological Survey considers 50 minerals to be critical, including rare earths. They are essential for industries such as defence, high-tech appliances, aerospace and green energy. According to Ukraine's Institute of Geology, the country possesses a significant deposit of rare earths, including lanthanum and cerium, used in TVs and lighting, neodymium, used in wind turbines and EV batteries, and erbium and yttrium, whose applications range from nuclear power to lasers. The state's geological service said Ukraine has one of Europe's largest confirmed reserves of lithium, vital for batteries, ceramics and glass. It also possesses 1/5 of the globe's reserves of graphite, a key component in electric vehicle batteries and nuclear reactors. So why does Trump want them? Political scientist Jakob Kulik said there are several reasons.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources, and it's an economic and national security risk. And in order to avoid that the Chinese will take over Ukrainian rare earths commodities and build up potential mines there, it's an option for the Americans.
Kulik added that not many American companies are able to mine and produce rare earths within the US. Ukrainian data shows that the country has deposits of 22 of the 34 minerals identified by the EU as critical. However, about 40% of Ukraine's metal resources are now under Russian occupation, according to estimates by Ukrainian think tanks. The bulk of Ukraine's coal deposits, which powered its steel industry before the war, have been lost.
Slash tires, cancelled gigs, weaponized influencers, and just recently, a bomb threat at the Kennedy Center. For nearly 2 decades, the Chinese Communist Party's been relentlessly targeting Shenyang Performing Arts. NTD's Steve Lance spoke with Shenyang MC Li Shai Lemish on how these attacks keep coming. Yet Shenyang's mission still powers through.
Li Shai Lemish, thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Steve.
It's great to have you with us, Li Shai. Shenyang, it's become a bit of a household name, whether you've actually seen the performance or seen the beautiful billboards when they come around during the touring season. You know, you guys are growing. You're back in the nation's capital right now to perform. What can we expect to see in a Shenyang performance?
So if you've never seen Shenyang, it's a celebration of 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. And we do this through dance, classical Chinese dance with a live orchestra, animated backdrops, soloists, MCs, and it's just amazing costumes. It's really a journey through ancient China, really a lost world that you can't see anywhere else today.
To your point, Shenyang's tagline is China before communism. Talk to us about how this is such a significant aspect of the performance.
Yeah, so that's our mission, is to revive traditional Chinese culture, 5,000 years of civilization that was mostly lost and destroyed under the Communist Party in China. And so we're talking about the ancient legends, and not just the legends themselves, but the values that are behind them, the virtues, the ideas like loyalty and courage and compassion and integrity. And these are brought forth and are carried really from one generation to the next through the stories. These values, even though they're Chinese in a way, they're actually universal. And that's why the performance is really so successful, because wherever we go, it resonates deeply with people of any nation, race, religion, country. They identify with it because something really very deeply human about the performance that really inspires and uplifts people.
And from what I understand, China has a very profound spiritual culture, and much of that was eradicated because of the Chinese Communist Party. Talk to us about how that culture clashes with communism.
So when the Communist Party came to power, really took over China in the middle of the last century, the first thing it set out to do was wipe out traditional Chinese culture and bring in this Soviet import of Marxism and Leninism and Stalinism, and later it became Maoism. And all of that import is really based on the ideas of violent atheism, materialism, and utilitarianism, which basically all comes down to it's what is in front of you right now that matters. There's nothing beyond it. There's no afterlife. There's no consequences. There's no right and wrong even. It's just about this very material world. And traditional Chinese culture is not about that at all. It's very much about consequences. What we say in the West, what goes around comes around, or karma, and they have a lot of expressions. And a lot of the heroes that really are so treasured throughout the generations are people who chose integrity and chose right over wrong, even with great sacrifice sometimes. And that's really antithetical to the Communist Party. So when they came over and they tried to basically change the culture in order to enable themselves to take over the country and establish a legitimacy, they had to wipe out this culture. Otherwise, how are you going to get students to beat up their teachers, or to turn on their parents during the Cultural Revolution, or to go and murder your neighbors? And they had to, you wouldn't do that if you believe that there's consequences, that you're going to have to face your ancestors, or you're going to be reincarnated, or there's karma, or there's heaven and hell, which were all these ideas that have been around for thousands of years in Chinese culture, as well as all over the world. And so really from that perspective, the values of this civilization are very deeply rooted, and communism sees them as a threat.
And so because of this mission, you all have faced tremendous adversity. Even right now, we're seeing bomb threats at the Kennedy Center. You say that this actually goes far beyond just the CCP hoax in these bomb threats designed to terrorize people. Put this into the proper context, if you could.
Right, so on our first day here in DC, we're setting up for our performance, and a fire alarm went off. And the theater security came over the loudspeaker, said, "This is not a drill, evacuate immediately." And as we're walking out, the way the security guards were pushing us around and getting us as far away from the building, I said, "This is not a fire drill, and it's not even a fire. There's something else." It felt like what you would have if there was a mass shooting incident or a bomb. And turns out, after about 3 hours standing outside in the cold, it wasn't just us. There was like 6 performing arts companies at the Kennedy Center at the same time, standing outside, freezing. They had received a bomb threat. And this is part of a pattern. We've gotten about 20 of these in different theaters around the world, including 2 since then, in France and in Netherlands. And we've gotten them almost daily at our headquarters in New York. And basically, they're all just trying to scare people from seeing the show and to scare the performers from performing. Not a single show has been canceled. Not a single performer has been deterred. But you're right, Steve, it comes as part of a big pattern of 18 years of the Chinese Communist Party trying to stop Shenyun, really from day one. So at first they would send other companies to try to compete with us. Then they would try to pressure the theaters to cancel our contracts, pull our advertising, try to hack our website, our ticketing site, my personal email, slashing our tires, and now trying to weaponize social influencers and mainstream media to come after Shenyun. I think they see how big a threat it is, even though it's just a dance show. It's a cultural event, but it is bringing back this lost heritage that they're really afraid of.
And, it does feel like these reports that you're speaking of these bomb threats, and mind you, as you mentioned, there is no threat or has been no threat to anybody's safety. It appears as though these are simply acts by the CCP just to terrorize people, as you mentioned. But why do you think you're seeing such an uptick right now? Does it maybe represent instability in China or the threat that they see in Shenyun?
Well, I think they're sensing that it's a desperate kind of end game type of battle for them. And there have been leaked documents coming out of China over the course of the summer last year saying that they really need to up the game against Shenyun and against the broader Falun Gong community in the United States. Sometimes they may link it to Taiwan with an idea that if they were to take over Taiwan, and there's such a strong Falun Gong community in Taiwan, that there would be a big resistance to the Communist Party. And so in order to uproot Falun Gong from Taiwan, they have to go after in the US. Shenyun has gotten a lot of support from the United States government and governments around the world, from Congress and other people, and I think they feel like they want to undermine that and really create a conflict between Shenyun and the American government and the American people.
Talk to us about Falun Gong, if you could, and also the relationship between Falun Gong and Shenyun.
Sure. So Shenyun Performing Arts was started by Falun Gong practitioners in New York in 2006. So Falun Gong became very popular in China in the 1990s, and by 1999 there were more people practicing Falun Gong than there were members of the Chinese Communist Party. Some of them were party members, some of them were artists, some of them were factory workers, but the Communist Party leader at the time said this is too many people doing this and we have to crush it. And we have to crush it within 3 months or it'll be the biggest embarrassment to the Communist Party. Of course, it's been 25 years, Falun Gong in China is not crushed. Outside of China, Falun Gong practitioners were caught rather flat-footed, not knowing what do we do, or that these people just like us in China who one day are meditating in a park now are being rounded up and thrown into labor camps and being tortured and killed. And so they started different activities, parades, and handing out flyers and lobbying Congress and media entities and trying to do all these different things online. And eventually, performing arts was one option of how to raise awareness about what's happening in China. And so you have these elite artists from around the world coming together and saying, let's revive traditional Chinese culture through performing arts and show the world what China was really like and the beauty of it. And at the same time, let's take this opportunity to show people the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners, and not just the brutality of the persecution, but the courageous resistance to it and the hope that comes from the strong faith that these people have, and including non-Falun Gong practitioners standing up and supporting them. And that's been one of the most moving pieces, I think, in the performance for audience members. And it's also a big reason why the Chinese Communist Party is so afraid of Shenyun, because these things are exposed on stage.
Li-Shai Lemish, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve.
Coming up, Washington proposing a $1 million plus fee for Chinese ships entering U.S. ports. It's a move aimed at reviving America's shipbuilding industry. President Trump ordering an investigation into tariffs on copper imports. Why the move ties into resolving an underlying China threat.
Starting the process to potentially impose tariffs or other trade barriers to prevent this ongoing dumping of copper and to protect the American manufacture and production of copper.
And President Trump's aluminum and steel tariffs are slamming into action in just 2 weeks. What will they mean for U.S. companies, the economy, and the world's top metal exporter, China? Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. Beijing is blasting the U.S. for a bold proposal, slapping over $1 million on Chinese-built ships every time they enter American ports. Even if the ships are built in China but run by non-Chinese operators, the fees still apply. In that case, if all of the operators' ships are made in China, they would pay up to $1.5 million per port entry in the U.S. The tab drops if fewer of their ships come from China. This comes as the U.S. is digging into China's tightening grip on global shipbuilding, now controlling half of the sector while American shipyards face increasing challenges. The U.S. claims China's state subsidies are fueling its shipyards, allowing them to squeeze out competitors and dominate the industry. U.S. shipyards have been in decline, dropping from building 70 ships per year in 1975 to just 5 ships annually now. The U.S. is also proposing cutting China's access to U.S. shipping data. Beyond tight grip on rare earth mineral production, China is also dominating markets for common metals such as copper and aluminum, raising major national security concerns for the U.S. Now, President Trump is weighing tariffs on copper to tackle the issue. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has the story.
And President Trump on Tuesday signed an executive order to order an investigation by the Commerce Department into potential tariffs on copper, a metal that administration told us is critical to the production of EVs, solar panels, as well as U.S. weapon systems.
With starting the process to potentially impose tariffs or other trade barriers to prevent this ongoing dumping of copper and to protect the American manufacture and production of copper.
It will have a big impact.
Top trade advisor to the president, Peter Navarro, told us in a press call that is to address national security threats. He says as China is trying to dominate copper markets with subsidized and cheap products, the U.S. risks not having enough copper for its AI, EV, and even defense. He says China has successfully expanded its economic influence in sectors ranging from steel and aluminum to solar panels and electric vehicles. It is now using that same model to gain control of the world's copper markets. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
President Trump's 25% tariffs on all imported aluminum and steel take effect in just 2 weeks. The move is seen as a direct strike on China, aimed at curbing Beijing's growing dominance in global supply chains and trade. China is the world's largest supplier of several key metals, including aluminum and steel, but only a small portion is directly sent to the US. So why is China targeted by Trump's new tariffs? Here's why. A large amount of China's aluminum has entered the US through third-party countries, including Mexico, Canada, and Vietnam. As the 25% tariffs loom, President Trump is facing mixed reactions from business leaders at home. Goldman Sachs said Wednesday that the tariff could boost the energy and metal production sectors in the long run. The bank attributed this to the Trump administration's commodity dominance policies, which aim to reduce reliance on critical metal imports and prioritize commodities in trade. However, the CEO of Alcoa, a leading U.S. aluminum producer, sees the tariffs differently. He warned Tuesday that the levy could cost 100,000 American jobs due to potential sales drops, which could lead to layoffs. The CEO's concern stems from the company's reliance on aluminum production in Canada. While the company does have some production capacity in the U.S., the CEO described it as outdated and inefficient. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Alice Tang in for Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We love to hear from you. For around-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you soon.